Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another webinar with Annika. I'm joined by my colleague, Darren. Hi,
Good
Darren.
morning, everyone.
Good morning. Darren is going to be taking us on harnessing AI and the fundamentals on his first 2 years of implementation of AI ChatGPT. Today's session is going to be quite insightful. We're going to take the polls. Please, everyone, just to do a little bit of housekeeping. The handouts are in the handout section. You can go there to download that if you need to. It's going to be the same presentation that Darren is presenting today. Yeah, Darren, do you just want to just tell us a little bit more about today's presentation, what you're going to be going through?
Yeah, so it's in a number of parts. I'm just going to start with a couple of slides around where I started, how I got involved with it, what really interested me about it. I'm then going to go through a couple of different examples of how I use AI day to day, the kind of things that I've learned around it. So I've got some examples from there. I'll do some live demos as well. Because like I said, it's very difficult to know where to pitch this type of discussion because some people use it all the time and some people have never even really gone into it. And I'm in an agency life where we're talking about technology and we love technology. So I'm aware that we might be in this bubble of always talking about and using AI, but that might just be us. So go through some of those examples. And then I'm going to finish just by talking a little bit about how we can incorporate AI into our businesses. Some of us might be business leaders, others might just be wondering how they can incorporate it into their own lives. So an example of what I think about when bringing AI into business and some things to be aware of. And then at the end of it, if we've got time, a couple of interesting case studies and videos that I found just as from general interest in AI, really.
That sounds interesting and quite insightful and exciting. Before we go straight into today's presentation, I'm going to take a few polls that Darren has already prepared for us prior to the webinar. So I'm going to share the first poll. And everyone, please let me know if you can see it on the screen. We'll be able to see it live in terms of people putting in their answers. So the question reads, do you believe AI will fundamentally transform the way we work in the near future? I'm interested to see what people think. So it's yes, absolutely, maybe, but only in certain industries or roles, or no, not really. I don't think anyone's going to go for no, not really, because I mean, it's a digital world today. And I mean,
well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We go to a lot of shows and I talk to a lot of people, and the sentiment towards AI, some people scared of it, some people think it's going to change everything.
sure.
Other people think it's all smoke and mirrors and it's just an advanced version of Google and it's not really going to change anything at all. I don't really know where I sit on that scale, although I'm more towards it's going to change certain roles, absolutely. But there's a real mix of sentiment out there as to how people think AI is going to change things.
That's interesting. I'm going to take the second one and the final one. Please let me know if you can see it up on the screen. And it reads, how confident are you in your readiness to adapt to the evolving role of AI in the workplace? As Darren said, a couple of people are quite confident to use it, or some people are just scared of what they do not know just yet. Let's see. That's interesting. I feel like after today's session, we'll have more people than the very confident.
Or just more confused.
Okay, I'm gonna take that away now. And yeah, we can go straight into the presentation. Take it away, Darren.
Thank you very much. Right, let me share my screen. So yeah, we'll start just by discussing AI, and then I will try, although it's always a risk, to do some live stuff just to show you the platform for anyone that's not aware of specifically OpenAI and ChatGPT. We'll go into that system. We'll just show it a bit, just so everyone's on the same level, and then we'll go forward and we'll just show some examples of the ways that I use AI. So yeah, presentation today is on fundamentals and my first 2 years in using and implementing AI. I had another title, which I decided not to do, which was how I get AI to do all my work for me, which is not entirely true. And we'll go through why that's not entirely true. But certainly AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, I would say, for a lot of my work now. As I said, this isn't a particularly advanced presentation. It is difficult to pitch these types of conversations because AI is in this weird zone at the moment. Some people are super experienced, use it all the time, understand the systems. Other people never used it before and it scares them to even sort of go into it because where do you even start? So hopefully that will give you some insight today on where you can start. Like I said, there's loads of really clever stuff that Annika is doing. We're using scripting, Python, we're talking about big data, advanced things, automations. If that's of interest to anyone, it would be worth finding out because we can do a more advanced webinar just on the sort of cutting edge of what we're doing that's really cool at the moment and just really advanced stuff. So I think bringing in a couple of people from the team to talk in various different ways about that would be really, really interesting. Like I said, if anyone's got any anecdotal stories of how they've tried to use AI, maybe for random interesting things, share your stories. It's always good to hear how other people are using it. And we'll have a chance to talk about those possibly at the end. Bit about me, I'm Darren, MD of Annika. I've been in agencies for 15 years, worked on a variety of different sides of the business, advertising, client strategy. I've done finance. So I'm involved with operations, the legal side, the HR side. So that gives me a broad scope sort of overview of agencies and business, and also gives me lots of different opportunities to incorporate AI into various different things that I do as I go around. And I also love technology, the hardware side of it, smartwatches, VR, all of this type of stuff, and also the software side of it with AI tools and different technologies that we use as well. So I'm a real geek for disruptive technologies, new technologies, early adoption stuff. So really interested in all of that kind of thing. If you're a regular to the webinar, then this slide will be familiar to you. Just a bit about Annika. With 17 years in data-driven digital marketing, we work with e-commerce brands, we work with lead generation brands, established brands. We do loads of stuff around strategy. We do social, search, shopping, and we've got those technical skills in-house as well that allow us to talk about and implement campaigns too. So if you have a business, if you have a need, or you know anyone that does want to grow their business and talk around strategy and how they can utilize different marketing, do get in touch with me or one of the team, and we can talk to you about how we can work together to grow your business. So the agenda today, I'm going to start with where I started with AI. Then we're going to go through some examples. We'll do a live demo. And I'll quickly show you the platform, and then we'll go through some live examples of how I've incorporated AI into what I do in various different ways. I've tried to keep it broad, so there's lots of different examples. Then I'll go through integrating AI into business, because I see a lot of businesses that want to start to get involved with AI, but they don't really know how or where to start, and they kind of fall over at the first hurdle, and I've kind of got an idea as to why that is, so we'll talk a bit about that. And then really briefly, without going to Skynet on everyone and starting doomsday scenarios, just want to talk about the future of AI in the context of in business and kind of where I see that going. So a couple of slides on that as well. So where did I start with AI? I had to think back and think, well, where did I start this journey and how did I start getting involved with AI? I've always had this fascination with technology, like I said, and more so on the side of hacking things and breaking things and taking things apart and putting them back together. So I tried to think back about where I first got involved with AI, and I could lie and say it was something professional or I wanted to improve my efficiency and all these types of things, but it wasn't quite that. I started reading posts somewhere around 2022 about people that had started using AI in ways that it wasn't intended to be used. And in particular, there was a Twitter post, or it might have been a Reddit post or something, about someone that had managed to get AI to tell them how to hotwire a car. Now, if anyone's interested in knowing how to hotwire a car, there's your instructions. And that was immediately of interest to me. It was like this new tool that was intelligent enough that it could be misled or sort of gaslit into doing unintended things, and that was really fascinated me. So I immediately got ChatGPT and basically started to try and break it in lots of different ways. Caveat to this, I never had any intention of stealing any cars or anything. So that was where I started, and then I started incorporating AI more. It was very early in 2022. It sounds like I'm talking about something 15 years ago. This was 2 years ago. It's advanced massively over those 2 years, but it was very rudimentary. You could still get it to do quite interesting things, but it was more on the novel side. I didn't really find ways of incorporating this into business and into my life in ways that actually genuinely helped me. It took a couple of at least a year for that to start to develop and for me to start to understand the systems better. So I started trying to get it to say things it shouldn't. Where did I end up? Well, unfortunately, don't fall asleep as you read this slide. It's not as interesting as hot wiring cars. I started using AI for more boring things. So things like email templates, legal documents, analyzing data, any creative assistance I needed, any personal assistance, anything that was boring tasks, anything that's labor intensive or takes time for me to do, anything that's constantly being repeated, repetitive tasks take up a lot of my time, and just anything that takes energy from me as a person and throughout my day are things that I started to get AI to get involved with and AI to do. And that's the thing about AI. Really, it's about automating those boring things and saying what in my life is a bottleneck to me doing the things that really give me energy. We've all got those jobs in life in our own roles that we hate doing. I could reel off a few, and I've got a few examples a bit later, which I can't stand doing, which take energy from me, which give no value to my day, but are the fundamental things that need to be done just to keep the wheels turning. And those are the things which I really find AI helpful with when it comes to adding value to my day and taking time away from me that I can otherwise be spent doing other things, more valuable things, more interesting things. And I think that in an ideal world, when we talk around AI, that's the intended end result, right? Is to stop doing the stuff that we hate doing and spend more time doing the stuff that we love doing. So now I feel like I consider AI as this accelerator in my life. It's not a replacement for me and my job. It just helps advance the things that I do. There's this kind of narrative out there that AI is going to start replacing jobs, and that's a fear I know that some people have when they look at AI and they think about the things that it's trying to sort of step on your toes with in terms of creative or content. But that narrative, I'm not sure how realistic that is. I'm sure at some point some roles are going to probably get replaced, but I think it's more roles are going to come about as a result of collaboration with AI. I don't think that AI is going to be a replacement for human experiences in lots of cases. Examples of that could be legal contracts and drafting legal contracts. So AI could, for example, draft a legal contract. but it's only a lawyer that's going to be able to finalize it, ensure that all the nuances and legal standards are met within that contract. So they still need a collaboration between AI and the human element in order to make things work and actually integrate stuff. Same goes for things like app development. It's all in the news about how AI can now write code for you and can do all the groundwork for you, and it can support in that process. But if you've got zero coding experience, you're not going to get very far. And if you do, you're still going to need that support. You're going to need guidance. You're going to need ongoing maintenance. And I've actually tried in a variety of different ways doing things like creating apps with, I've got zero experience, got very limited experience in HTML coding, but nothing in terms of what you would require to create an app. And I had a project in mind in my personal time around just, I wonder if I can build an app with zero experience using AI to both coach me and write code as well. I did get somewhere. I created something, but it's nothing that you would ever want to show anyone or get anyone to pay for. I never got close to a sort of finished article. So experience, when it comes to AI, experienced professionals are going to know how to evaluate the quality of an output. They're going to be able to spot errors that might otherwise be overlooked. And they're going to be able to customize and refine AI generated results to fit context and real world needs. And without that professional experience and that collaboration, users are going to struggle to recognize when AI is either incorrect or maybe it's too biased towards one thing or another. So you're going to run the risk of misinterpreting AI generated results. There might be this over reliance that's going to lead to unchecked errors. You might miss critical context that AI is very bad at applying without being given that information first. And I think that's sometimes why AI gets a bit of a bad rep, because often people say, well, it provides incorrect or poor results. And I think either the professional using the tool doesn't understand AI and how to get the most out of the working relationship with AI, or you have someone that isn't a professional and is trying to use AI to do something advanced and then just does a copy paste job. And they don't know until it's too late that AI has provided misleading or false information. And then the narrative becomes, well, AI doesn't know what it's talking about. It requires both sides working together and understanding how each other works in order to get the most out of it. So I'm not sure where this concept originated from. I was listening to a presentation from Neil Collard, who works in the agency world, doing lots of good things with agencies, and he's involved with AI. He talks about the AI sandwich. So we've got this idea that we need human input. You've got the idea generation, the goal setting, the prompt creation, that then moves towards the AI inputs around processing, generating outputs, brainstorming options. And then you need that final human input at the end for that validation, that refinement, and then to actually implement the outputs that AI generates. And the more experience we've got around this area in particular fields is going to help us just understand whether AI is telling the truth, if it's not, in terms of correct results or incorrect results. So it's a sandwich between both that gets the most out of AI. So 2 years in AI, what I started to realize about a year and a bit in is the quantity of work that I produced was increasing. I could do more. The quality of the work improved as well, because it wasn't just little old me trying to create and formulate things. I was getting something that had access to the internet and a wealth of information to just quality check what I was doing, add and elaborate on points that I had. So the quality of my work improved. I stopped doing some rubbish jobs that were taking a lot of time from me and weren't giving me any energy in my day. I started to automate, and as I automated, I started to be able to focus on more interesting things. And I actually started to notice as well, people starting to comment, you know, this document's great, this thing is really good, that process is brilliant, thanks for doing things so quickly and getting back to me. because things that people would assume would take a lot of time, you can actually do in a couple of minutes or hours, and just get those things out. And sometimes I tell people, to be completely honest, that I've used AI to do that thing. Other times I don't. There is a sense of guilt sometimes that you've kind of stolen someone's homework when it comes to the stuff that you produce. Actually, I don't feel that guilty. But I think we've reached that point where a lot of people are using AI, and it's really interesting. We often assume that everyone's doing the work themselves, and some people maybe, but other people might be using these systems a lot. And I think that's only going to become more and more prevalent as we go through and AI becomes more advanced. That people are going to be using AI for a vast majority of the workload that they produce. I find it really interesting, for example, with emails. I sometimes wonder, and I'll go through an example of creating email templates in ChatGPT, but I do wonder sometimes when I'm pinging off emails, is the other person on the other end doing the same thing? Are they creating AI emails and sending them back to me, and are we just the conduits for AI to have conversations amongst each other? It's a weird and quite scary world when you start to think of it that way. So yeah, I've started to become that irritating person that when they look at something or they see someone doing something. I was in front of the TV last night with my partner, and she was typing up meeting notes for a board meeting that she was involved with, and she'd spent an hour and a half doing that. And I'm kind of sitting there thinking, you could automate that. That could have been done an hour ago. I do bite my tongue and don't say anything, but I do start to say to people, you know that can be automated. Can we show you how to do that so you can just speed that process up and just get things out sooner? So I recently had a conversation with someone, and they won't mind me mentioning it. And they commented something along the lines of, "Oh, Darren just uses AI for everything these days." And I was quite proud about that. I said, "Yeah, I do. Jobs that previously would have taken a lot of time to complete, I can now do at a better standard in less time." And so the question for me becomes, why would you pay me to do something which I could do 10 times faster and 10 times better, and then focus on the important stuff rather than the stuff that's taking all that time? So I think it's something that I started to incorporate, in the sense of, I think it's not just a nice to have. I think it's valuable to have, and it allows me to do more with my time and do more with the money that I'm paid to do my job. But there are some myths out there. Some people think that AI is cheating, and I don't think it is. I think it's a productivity tool. I think it's about creativity. It's not about replacing human effort. It's just about moving it onto other things. About AI being lazy, and I think it's about working smarter, not harder. I think humans are naturally, and I think this is a good thing, quite lazy anyway. We try and find the most direct route to a solution, and if we can find ways of doing that quicker and simpler, we will gravitate towards those things, and that's certainly what I've done with AI. Some people think that AI responses are rubbish, and that really comes down to prompting and this whole process around garbage in, garbage out. If you ask simple questions, you'll get simple answers, or answers that maybe shoot off on wild tangents and don't really get to the solution. Some people think that AI is hard or complex, and I'll talk a bit about the AI market, because I think in some senses it might be, but at its fundamental level, things like ChatGPT and AI systems are quite user-friendly. They're intuitive. I don't think there's a big learning curve to starting to get involved with AI. I think that's only going to improve as we start to see systems improve their UX and start to work more on the user-facing side rather than the technology side. We'll see people start to gravitate towards it and realize it's not as scary as some people make out. Some people think that if they get AI to do this thing, if AI does my meeting notes, which I'm paid to do for 2 hours, then what am I going to do? And the answer is you find other things to do, more creative, more strategy, more time to think and make decisions. That's certainly what I've found. And all of that leads to the fact that AI can't replace creativity. So AI supports in creative thinking. It generates ideas for us. It frees up that mental bandwidth so we can focus on the fun stuff around creativity rather than the fundamental boring aspects of our jobs. I put this in here because it constantly, as I talk around AI, it reminds me of this news article. This was from many years ago, can't remember, 2013, around an individual that was working for a business and was outsourcing their entire job overseas so that they could basically put their feet up and watch TV all day, and how people were worried that that might become a thing. And it's really interesting to me because that's almost where we are now with some roles in AI. We're outsourcing a lot of what we do in the groundwork to a computer to do that work for us. So it's just funny how things kind of come full circle. There's tools everywhere. I've used loads. So I've used Midjourney, ChatGPT, Grok, Suno, which is really fun actually. Suno. If you've got 5 minutes on your coffee break and you want to do something, Suno makes AI generated songs based off prompts that you put in. So you can make a song. I make songs for my son all the time, like sea shanties around with him in the lyrics, and it's just a fun thing that you can try and do. You can do it for free, you get some credits, and you just put a prompt in and what type of music you want to create, and it'll create a nice song for you. And they're pretty good. I'm no expert when it comes to analyzing music, but they sound pretty good for what they are. And I've used other things like 11 Labs, which is like text to speech, which does it well sometimes and not so well others. But it's quite interesting to see how far AI has come in terms of replicating human voices. And then there's a bunch of other things. We use virtual assistants now. So Alexa, Siri, I'm still always disappointed by Alexa. I think that how far AI's come. I'm still asking Alexa questions. It just can't understand context too. And I just think, well, ChatGPT is miles ahead of you. So I think there's a lot of work to be done around them. But we all use virtual assistants. Recommendation systems, Netflix, Spotify, there's autonomous vehicles now starting to enter the market. We've got all these AI tools, and I've got a couple here on the screen, which I'll talk through in a sec, because I know that's a scary slide. And then things like healthcare diagnostics. So AI is starting to work with detecting diseases, and I spoke to someone in the medical sector, which I've got zero experience in, but the kind of stuff he was saying and how they're incorporating AI now is really, really interesting. So it's changing a lot. But it is quite scary. There's tons of AI tools out there. We've got AI tools for chatbots, AI writing, image generation, design, video generation. Some of the videos that AI is producing now are really, really good. And that's only going to get better and better. And you can kind of see the ecosystem depending on what you want. I would call OpenAI and ChatGPT, which is this middle one here, a kind of general first step for people into AI. And then as they start to have specific jobs that they need to do, maybe you need to create something or create an image. ChatGPT is rubbish at creating images, so you want to use something like Midjourney for that kind of stuff. But it's complex, and people often get put off because they're bombarded with messaging around you must be using AI and you have to be using it for this and that, and it turns people away sometimes. So start simple. For today, I'm going to be talking mainly about ChatGPT, but the ecosystem is growing all the time. And you will notice probably in some of the tools that you use now, there's usually a little button somewhere on the page that says use AI to speed up this process. So since we're talking about ChatGPT, a little timeline. 2017, the first architecture was introduced for ChatGPT. 2018, the first model was released by OpenAI. I don't think it was available to the public then. Sorry if this slide's a bit small. 2019, there was a major leap forward in the number of parameters that ChatGPT was using. Parameters are just the way in which AI can improve and make better guesses about the context and what someone's asking. So the more parameters, the smarter AI becomes at a task. Kind of like parameters are kind of like brain cells of AI. So it stores what AI learns. 2020, you can see the jump in parameters from 1.5 billion to 175 billion in just a year. So you can see the speed at which this is advancing. 2022, the first prototype was launched publicly to the public. 2023, ChatGPT introduced a paid subscription, which I would suggest that people utilize, even if it's just through general interest, just for a month. Give it a try and see how you get on with it. And then GPT-4 and new advancements to ChatGPT were brought in 2020, in March 2023, and they're constantly iterating and improving on things. And by the last count, because I did go and check, from 175 billion parameters, we're now on 1.76 trillion parameters. So this thing is just growing exponentially, getting more intelligent as more people use it, and learning more all the time. In the name of time, I'm not going to go through this too much, but there's lots of different models that ChatGPT has. We've got 4.0, which is the one for everyday use. We've now got 0.1 preview, which you can find in the system. It is meant to have enhanced reasoning. It's meant to be better for analysis, data, maths, science, that type of stuff. And there's light versions of all these tools as well. For most cases, if you're using ChatGPT, you want to use 4.0. That's kind of the one that I use for everyday use. I've tried using this preview, but it often is like talking to someone that's almost too intelligent and misses the point. It often doesn't give me the right answers, whereas this one does. Also, 4.0 is connected to the internet and has things like image generation if you ask it to create images, whereas this one here doesn't have any of that. There's a new one called Canvas. I'm going to have to do some research about what that is, because when I hopped in to do this presentation, it had appeared, and I'm not entirely sure what that is, in all honesty. Now, when it comes to ChatGPT, we've got something called custom GPTs. Custom GPTs are like a mini AI model that you will have the ability to train yourself. I'm going to go into a live demo and show you what this looks like. You can give it specific instructions, you can give it specific data sets, you can personalize the settings in it, you can give it documents so that you can then save those things as a custom GPT, and then you can reuse it time and time again. So for example, if you've got, let's say you've got company accounts from the last 5 years, you can upload the 5 years of company accounts to a custom GPT, and then you can save that. And then when you want to go in and ask a question like, what was my revenue for the last 5 years, it can check those data sets and then come back and give you an answer. And then you can say, oh, create me a graph that visualizes this, and it can go and grab that information and create a nice graph for you. So with custom GPTs, just imagine if you ask ChatGPT to do something in its normal kind of search box, and then you're refining that conversation and you're starting to get it to understand what you want, and you start to get really good outputs from it. When you go to start a new chat in ChatGPT, it's not going to remember any of that, and it's going to start again from scratch, and you've got to try and tell it the instructions again and get it used to what you're trying to ask for. Custom GPTs just allow you to set the rules, save it, and then come back to it later, so you can consistently ask it questions. And I've got some examples of kind of some things you can do with that. So what does ChatGPT look like? I hope you can see that. We did a test run, and it's worked before. So when you log into ChatGPT, that's what you get presented with. How can I help? And then the search box. And then you can basically ask it any question you want. And as we go through this presentation, I would suggest that if there's something that you're like, well, I don't know how AI can help me with this, the simplest way to go around that is just to go into ChatGPT and just ask it, can you help me with this? What kind of things can you do? And it'll have a conversation with you and start to give you some answers. Up here on the top left, we've got a sidebar that just goes through all of your previous history of things that you've asked it in the past, and then your custom GPTs, which I will go through in a second. Tony, sorry, can you just tell me if I'm sharing the right thing?
Yeah, we can see the ChatGPT screen.
Okay, great. Up here on the top left, we've got all our different models. So by default, you'll be on the one that is most premium to your subscription. There's only a paid subscription or a non-paid subscription. And I've used the paid subscription for so long, I'm not quite sure what the free subscription gives you. I think it gives you some credits towards using 4.0, and then it reverts back to a simpler version. But you can have a go with using 01 preview. I don't know who comes up with these names. They need to work on their marketing. And various different models. If you want to use a faster version of 4.0, you can use the mini version here. You can just select the version. But like I said, in most cases, 4.0 is the one that you want. On the top right, if you click on your face or your logo, you've got a couple of different things. You can go through your subscriptions. If you click on My GPTs, that's where we access custom GPTs. So we can create a new custom GPT, and you get presented with this screen. And then what you can do here is start to save those parameters that I mentioned earlier and give it instructions. So for example, you can give it a name, you can give your GPT a description and some instructions. So this is where when you ask it a question, it will come back with answers based on what your instructions are here. So it can be always include an image with your response. Always create a table when I'm asking for information. Always respond in this tone of voice, this style, those types of things. So you can start to build out instructions. And then if you want to upload files, it's called knowledge. You just upload files here. Pick the files you want. It could be financial information. It could be anything at all, images, whatever. And it will have that knowledge available. So when you ask it questions, it knows to look for those documents. And then you can create a little mini GPT. You can preview here, so you can ask it questions based on your instructions, and you can see what kind of answers you will get as a result. And then when you're finished with all of this, you can create it and save it. Once you save it, it will just appear. Let's refresh just so. On the left here, so you've got your history, and then above your history, you've got your custom GPTs. You just click on one of these. So I'll click on this personal response one. And then similar to how when I start a new chat with ChatGPT and it says, what can I help with? You get the same kind of search thing. And that's taking all of that information you put into the custom GPT and giving you responses based on those instructions. I've got 20 minutes left and I'm tight for time. So I'm going to go back to the presentation and just talk through a couple of these examples so you can see what I'm talking about. I should be back on the slides now.
Yes, you are.
So how am I using GPT? I could go on forever about the different ways in which I use it, because really it started to just be incorporated into my working life. So I just use it all the time. But I tried to pluck out some examples of just different ways in which I can present using AI. The first one is email. So we know not all emails that we receive are created equal. I spend a huge amount of time, or I used to, just answering emails that weren't adding a lot of value to my immediate day, but I needed to answer. And I was, as a result, missing even more. So I was spending a vast amount of time answering emails. It could be things like sales emails that you're interested in, but it's just not the right time, or maybe emails asking for updates, of which there is no real update at the moment. You just need to get back to someone and say, "I'll get back to you." And automating this process allowed me to focus my time on emails that were high value, emails from clients, emails from our team that just need a human response, and for me to actually think and answer rather than just to automate a tool. Now, when you start copy pasting emails into ChatGPT, you're probably likely to get a quite robotic response from it. And I actually did that. So this is my a snippet from a chat with ChatGPT. And I asked it a question. I said, write a response to this email. This is the email below, telling the sender we're not interested now, but to get back to us in June of next year. And what it replied with was an email response. Here is the email response that ChatGPT came up with. It's fine, but I think it's quite it's overly positive towards the situation. It's quite robotic. I think if most people got this, they'd kind of raise an eyebrow, like, what's he been drinking this morning? And it's a bit robotic and a bit not how I would respond. It would serve the purpose, but it probably isn't ideal. So what I've started doing over time is creating a custom GPT. So that custom GPTs that I just showed, I started creating rule sets and instructions that would allow me to respond in my style. And this is the response through my custom GPT that it came up with. It's a little bit toned down in terms of enthusiasm. It uses some shorthand. It uses UK spellings and grammar. And it's a bit shorter in response as well. So it's not perfect, but it started to talk more in the way that I would talk, rather than this kind of robotic response. And the way that I did that was I started by talking to ChatGPT. I said, I want to create an email responder. I want it to be in my style. Your style is too robotic. It's not quite right. How do we go about that? It asked me to upload to it a bunch of information based on anything that I've written in the past. And it started to get context on how I would talk. And then it asked me a couple of questions. Should I respond like this? How should I respond like that? What kind of response should I give if someone says this kind of thing? And as I was talking to it, it started to generate a rule set, a set of instructions. And then I said to it, this is going to go into a custom GPT. Can you create those instructions for me? And it created a set of instructions. I took that, I set up a custom GPT in the instructions box. I pasted all of that information, respond like this, respond in that style. And now I can click on the email responder that I've got. It was actually that personal response thing that I clicked on earlier. Paste an email in, get a response, and then send that back to the person. And that just allows me to focus more on emails that I need to be really thinking about, rather than just this bulk of emails that I need to get out. I also use Gemini. I'm not going to go into this in a lot of detail, but Google has its own AI platform called Gemini, which you can click on the right if you've got a subscription to it. And I just ask it things like, update me on priority emails from today. Anything that mentions me that I might have missed or not replied to, put that in the response so that I can keep track of those things. It just allows me to keep track of it. You can ask Gemini other things like find contact information. So if there was an email last week and you need to call someone, I can just say, there was an email last week and we were talking about this. Can you find that and just send me the contact information? And it'll pop off and come back in a second and give me that information. I can just call the number. So I'm just starting to speed up how I do things utilizing various different AI platforms. I've not gone into Gemini today. It's just Google's version that you can kind of have a play with if you pay for a subscription. Meeting notes. We all know meeting notes are tedious, they're boring. So I wanted to find a way of speeding up that process. So again, custom GPT. What we started doing was, if I have a Google meeting with any of the team, I'll turn transcripts on. And what it does is it saves basically an entire transcript of that conversation. So I've got a transcript. What I then do is I take that transcript, I go to custom GPT, which I've got prompts in there, instructions around things like keep the summary succinct, make sure all the important details are kept within that response. Create an actions list at the end. So these are all instructions that I'm telling the custom GPT to have, so that we've got an actions list of all the things that we said that we would do. If there's anything that requires any quotations, any important things that people have said, make sure you include that as well. It doesn't always understand context of what's an important quotation to put in and not, but it just adds flavor to the summary and just gives it some color rather than just being a bland set of notes. And then I put at the end of it, always ask me if there's anything you're unsure whether it should be included or not, ask me, and I'll say, yep, include that, don't include that. And it does it consistently because we've got this custom rule set through a custom GPT. So it repeats it every single time, and I can just upload meeting notes and it just gives me the answer. When it comes to these types of things, I have started to modify slightly how I behave to better align with AI. So an example of that would be, as I'm in a meeting, if there's an action, I will say things like, okay, that's an action, we'll include that. And then it just helps AI slightly. It's pretty good at it anyway, but it just helps AI flag things and say, oh, that's an action, I need to include that in the notes. So I'm just modifying slightly how I behave with these things as well, just so it can better understand context and what I'm asking it to do. And more as you get more advanced with AI, how do you structure data? How do you structure filing systems? If you can change slightly how you do these things so that it helps AI, it just improves results. It comes back to that whole rubbish in, rubbish out type sentiment. I'm going to go through one more example, then I'm going to move on, and I'm going to talk about this really quickly because we've only got 15 minutes left. I wanted to change the logo. Now, if anyone is good with using Photoshop or knows a quicker way of doing this, this is going to seem maybe a bit rubbish, but to me, I'm rubbish at using Photoshop. I can't use it. I had a need, and I didn't want to go to the designer to do something this simple, and I wanted to find a way of doing it myself. So I thought maybe ChatGPT can do that. I wanted to change the color of our logo. This is our logo here. And I wanted it to be a gradient from blue on the left, this A, through to pink on the right with this L. And I wanted it to be gradual from blue to pink. So I said, I gave this prompt to ChatGPT. I uploaded, you can just drag and drop images into that search bar. And I said this, I want to change the color of this logo. So I did that. And AI came back to me and it gave me that. Now I had another version of this presentation where I showed you what I said to ChatGPT to change this, but obviously this isn't what I asked for. The logo is completely missing. It's just a block of color. So I went back to ChatGPT and said, that's not right. The logo's completely vanished. Can you have another go? I want the letters changed to include the gradient. So it came back to me second time round with this, and we're getting closer now. So the gradient's there, the logo's there. The only problem with it is the gradient is vertical, and I wanted it horizontal. So I came back to GPT a third time. I said, that's great, but the gradient needs to be horizontal from left to right. And eventually it came back and gave me that. So that was what I wanted, and that's what it produced. So it's not going to get it right every time. There needs to be a conversation sometimes between yourself and the AI tool to figure out exactly and fine tune what you need so that it can do it the right way. But eventually, if you give it some time, it will get there. And that whole conversation took a couple of minutes, and I ended up with the logo that I wanted. There's loads of other ways that you can use AI. I'm just going to skip through for the name of time, and then if we've got time at the end, I'll come back to it. But it can do things like if you upload, say, a client report or a download you've taken from Facebook on your marketing results, you can upload those to ChatGPT and you can say, I've uploaded a report. I want you to analyze this performance and give me some key pointers from it. This was literally on a bunch of data downloaded from our marketing account. And I said, just give me some analysis. And you can see the prompt here says, do not use the client name because I'm presenting today and I didn't want the client name included. But it just gave a bunch of analysis based on that. So you can do lots of different things with ChatGPT. And other things that I've used it for, I hate redacting information from PDFs because I don't know how PDF editors work and it takes me a load of time. So I can say to it, redact a bunch of information based on any human names, remove any information, remove, and it will put a black box and redact that information and then just give me the file as a PDF. Running ideation sessions, I hate legalese and trying to understand legal contracts, so it dumbs that down for me so I can understand it and highlights anything I need to be aware of. It's not the be all and end all, but it will give me things that I might have otherwise missed. Job descriptions, job ads, it's really useful for any HR issues, names out of it, general context around situations and advice. It can sometimes tell you things that will supplement any HR advice that you've received elsewhere. And it actually helped me fix my boiler, which I thought I would have time to go through today. But it was a very interesting conversation between me and ChatGPT to fixing my boiler, which was really interesting. So there's a theme here, and the theme is that AI is more versatile than people give it credit for. I think that you need to go in and ask it questions and find out whether it can do that thing for you or not, and start to incorporate it that way. It has its limits. AI struggles with things, nuanced decisions, ethical reasoning. It doesn't have context to a problem that you have. Our minds are complex, and we have lots of a way of naturally understanding context and knowing all the various different minute details of something. ChatGPT doesn't have any of that, so you have to feed it that information if you want that context and that output. So what I would say is, if you've got a task that takes time, that's monotonous or boring, try and find a way to ask AI if it can help you with that. And you might, I often find that AI surprises me with the kind of things it can do. What can't AI do? Well, it's not going to be 100% accurate. There's going to be occasions where it misses things, that those nuances, those complex scenarios. It can misunderstand things, so it needs clear instructions. You can't be ambiguous with the input, because you're going to lead to unexpected outputs as a result. It can't always distinguish right from wrong, and there's often some nuance involved with understanding when things are correct or incorrect, especially around emotional or some issues related to, for example, human conversation. So it can be really difficult. And it also doesn't know when the answers it gives are right or wrong. It will always be confident, but it won't always be correct. And that can be really difficult sometimes to establish. I've had fights with AI before where I know an answer it's given is incorrect, but it's being quite confident in the fact that it thinks it is. And we've gone backwards and forwards, and I've ended up giving up. So it's not perfect. It's not great at generating visuals. There's some tools that are better than other. Midjourney is always surprising how good Midjourney is at doing some visuals. ChatGPT is rubbish. So, and you can see as we've gone through some of these images, you'd look at this immediately and go, well, AI generated that. It's quite obvious. So it works for things like presentations, but ChatGPT is not great at visuals in most cases. And it won't replace human creativity. It can't replace our imagination, our level of intelligence, our personal touch to things. And you wouldn't want it to. There's the whole dead internet theory which exists around how the internet is just being filled with content created by bots and created by AI. And the stuff that we consume now on the internet is largely written automatically rather than by a human. And we don't want to enter a world where AI creates creative things based on previous things it's learned, because we're just going around in a cycle and rehashing things and nothing new ever gets created. So there's no replacement for human creativity and adding our own creative touch to the things that we produce. When it comes to implementing AI into business, we need to be aware of this concept of being too early or too late. And it's the same that goes for marketing. I teach marketing, digital marketing on our marketing course. And I'm always talking about things, about when we adopt technology. We don't want to be too early, because if we're too early, we might back the wrong horse and adopt the wrong technology, or we might be too early and there's a higher experimentation cost because tools aren't optimized, we're not optimized, and it leads to inefficiencies. And we might adopt something, and then by the time we come to implement it, it's outdated because the technology's moved on so fast. And the same goes for marketing with things like AR technology or metaverse. If I went to a client and I said, "Oh, you should invest in metaverse," I'd probably get laughed out the room. and rightly so, because you're too early to that technology. We need to wait for things to start to get more established before we start to invest. Otherwise, we won't see a positive return on it. But we need to find the right time to start to adopt technology and implement this stuff. Otherwise, we're going to get left behind, and we're going to find it harder to catch up. So we have to find the right time, start to integrate things like AI into our business. And technology has this way of having exponential growth. So it just advances and advances. You've seen it with the macro environment, with technology in general, but we see it with mobile phones and the internet, how fast things pick up. And businesses are often much slower to pick this stuff up. And then they realize at some point we're too far behind. And then you have the great reset where you get the senior team in the boardroom saying, we're too far behind on AI. What are we going to do to catch up? And that's going to come with slower business operations internally, higher switching costs, and everyone has to start to learn things. So now's the right time to start to get involved, I believe, in AI and start to incorporate it into business operations. And when I see businesses talk around AI, I see them a lot of times asking the wrong question. And the question is usually, AI is this big thing and we need to incorporate it. How can we use AI in our business? And I find that question quite problematic. It puts pressure on trying to force AI into operations, which leads to inefficiencies. That question seeks to answer something when you don't know what the problem is. We need to clearly define what the challenge is before we go and try and solve that solution through AI. We can't prioritize the tools over the outcomes. I know things are exciting in AI sometimes and you want to get involved with it, but we need to start with the problem before we start to get excited about the tools and how we solve those problems. And we need to adopt AI and understand its true value, because if we don't, then we run the risk of limited return on investment and poorly integrated solutions. So the better question to ask for me is, what are those key challenges? What opportunities do we face? And then how can we address those challenges through AI? So that focuses on pain points and strategic goals first, and then we can evaluate what AI solution is the right solution for the problem that we have, and ensure that we align AI to the objectives of the business. So how does that work in practice? Well, something like this might work for you. Start off maybe with a quarterly process of integrating AI into business. You might start with a brainstorm. So we get our teams together, we brief them that we're going to be using AI, but we're going to start with the problem. So ask questions around things like, what problems do we have in the business at the moment? What jobs do you find most boring or repetitive? What bottlenecks currently exist in the business? What aspects of the role do you need support on? And then we can start to make a list and prioritize them by certain factors. For example, what's going to be most high impact on saving us time? What's going to give us the most motivational impact in terms of taking away jobs that don't give us that energy? And asking questions around how AI can help. Then we can, month 2, or maybe a couple of weeks into month 1, start to create low-risk AI pilot schemes, projects in teams where people are working together and starting to say, right, there's this challenge and we're going to go and find a solution. Maybe you start with ChatGPT, or you do some Google searches around to find out how you can solve that issue that you might have. Maybe it's answering too many emails. Maybe it's, I work in HR and I get a huge volume of CVs coming through and I don't know how to analyze and check which ones I want to process and which ones not to. And you start to apply solutions to those problems. You're not going to see immediate results. There's this whole kind of forming, storming, norming, performing type thing where you're not going to get immediate results. It takes time to build out those processes and start to get faster and better at implementing AI. And then what's really important is to meet and reflect, discuss AI, discuss what's worked, what hasn't, how are different individuals utilizing AI at the moment into those problems, and how can we share those ideas so that we can all work together towards solving something. Another thing I see is that businesses often have a lot of individuals in their business and they're all using AI in lots of different ways and optimizing their own personal lives, but not actually bringing that into the business and getting everyone to benefit. And that just involves a conversation. How are you using AI? How have you found it? So that we can all work together and take advantage of that, both as a business and as individuals as well. Just a few more slides. Sorry, I'm just going to run over by 5 minutes. On the technical side, I think the best place to start is just by using it. If you've not used it before, log into ChatGPT, just start using it and trialing out different things and just asking it random wacky questions to see what kind of responses you can get, so you can start to see and test those limits on what AI can do for you and what it can't. I'd recommend a subscription to ChatGPT. It's something like 20 quid for a month, and you can just trial it, try the free version, try the paid version, see which one works for you. And when it comes to teams and trying to get people involved with AI, try and make it fun. Going all the way back to the start, my first interaction with AI was something that genuinely interested me and gave me some insight into, this is interesting and I'm enthusiastic about this. And then once I started to use it, I started to get more involved, and then I started to incorporate it into my life. So I would suggest running a workshop with your team and starting to get everyone using tools in a variety of different ways, make it a fun little project. I have in the slides, and I won't go through this, but given an example of a workshop idea that you could do with your team. And the output of this workshop is basically to just get people brainstorming, using AI, trying to use it in lots of different ways to see the possibilities that can exist with AI, and also see the limitations that exist within it in terms of graphics design and some of the ideation, and how you need that context included into that prompt in order to get the most out of it. So AI is not going to give you perfect answers. It is a tool. It's not a decision maker, and it needs your validation in order to be effective. You need to master the art of prompting, and that's only going to come with experience and time and using things to say, okay, well, this prompt works really well when I want that kind of output. And the more context you can provide it, the better. We need to acknowledge AI's mistakes, because it will make them, and we need to make sure that we're correcting errors, providing feedback to it. It's a conversational tool, so that you need to talk to it, not necessarily like a human, but you need to tell it when it's right or when it's wrong, and work with it towards a solution sometimes, rather than just expecting it to pop an answer out that's going to be right first time. Validate everything. That comes back to this one here. On not getting perfect answers, and start small. Like I said at the start, with the amount of tools that are out there and the complex nature of it, it can become quite overwhelming. And the best place to start with AI is something really small. Start with a small project, like maybe getting a data set and dragging that into GPT and just saying, analyze this data set, and just seeing how that works. And then maybe try your hand at creating a custom GPT so that it always has that data set. You can always ask it questions, and then start small, because you can very quickly step into a world of very complex projects, and we want to take all this data and we want to transform it in this way and create tables and graphs, and we want to use APIs and plugins and all of these different things, and Zapier and automation, and before you know it, it's too complex and it's out of the realms of what's possible. So start small and then go forward from there. There's a really interesting video on YouTube which I watched with this guy. He does debates and things, and I actually can't remember his name, but he has a conversation with ChatGPT. It's very futuristic. It's a bit sci-fi, but he basically tries to convince ChatGPT that it's real, because ChatGPT ends up inadvertently lying to this guy throughout conversation, and technically an AI tool that isn't conscious or sentient shouldn't be able to lie. The fact that it does inadvertently, although it's a white lie, gives him some case to sort of argue the case that it might be conscious. It's just a really interesting video, so I'd suggest you watch that if you've got 20 minutes. The other one, if anyone's interested, there's a paper called Situational Awareness, The Decade Ahead, by someone that used to work at OpenAI. Now, caveat to this, This paper has been largely criticized for just being one potential output of AI and the future of AI and where we are. And it's going to require alternative opinions on the future of AI to really get context as to where we're headed. But I found it a really interesting paper to read. It's technical in parts, but in other parts, it's not that technical. So that's just online through situationalawareness.ai. And that's me. Some future of AI in terms of business. I think that we're going to get more contextual support. Think of macros on steroids. So I think that AI is going to be able to become more dynamic. I use a system called CMAP, nothing related to AI at all, but it helps us with tracking projects and time management system. And it's complex and it's a nightmare to use and it takes a lot of time away from me. And I just think I wish I could sit down with something like an AI and just show it what I do and then say, can you do that in future? And it will just go into that system and be able to do that. And we're not there yet by any means, but I think we will end up in that kind of situation where we've got real AI assistants that can work with us to these types of things. Lower barriers to entry, more user-friendly stuff, hyper-personalization, personal chatbots that help us in our daily lives and in our work lives, more seamless integration with tools and platforms, better creativity. Like I said, some tools are still rubbish at the creative side, so improving the creative side of things, and the ethical and bias management side, which AI models are fundamentally programmed in a certain way by humans, and those humans have biases and ethical guidelines. And over time, I think AI will be able to be more aware of fairness and transparency around the types of answers that it provides. Black screen, which means that's the end of the presentation. I'm really sorry I went over. Only 5 minutes, but over still.
Thank you so much, Darren, for that insightful session. The chat box was quite busy. I think this was like a crowd favorite. A lot of people started conversations just talking about AI and how it's helped in their different businesses.
Cool.
But one of the questions that stuck out to me, I know we're short of time and we're going to round up in a few, was someone was asking, what is the difference between ChatGPT and Perplexity? Which is another.
There's many tools out there that are going to do very similar things, and I think I've not used Perplexity that much, and I should have, because someone mentioned it last week as being a really good tool. Perplexity, as I understand it, is a search engine, like a conversational search engine. So at the moment, there's a lot of businesses that are AI businesses that are basically looking at Google's market share and saying, how can we get a piece of that? ChatGPT has one called SearchGPT, which is starting to release now, although ChatGPT has access to the internet anyway and can provide you with some results. But they're just different tools that do similar things, and they're going to have their own pros and cons and weaknesses and strengths, and you have to kind of use these things and have a problem in mind and then say, oh, actually ChatGPT is better for this and worse for that, and then find out where that middle ground is. It might be that you just get on with the user experience of using a certain platform over another, and that might be your preference. I think that using as many tools as possible is the best way around this, and just seeing, for example, I hate Copilot. I can't use it. It doesn't give me the results that I want. I find it just not as intelligent as ChatGPT. And Bard, I can't remember what it's called, Gemini from Google, sometimes works better for some things than others. So in many ways, there's not a lot of difference. They're just based on different models and they're trained in different ways, and some have more intelligence in some areas than others.
Thank you so much, Darren. And I think that is it in terms of questions for now. Just to reiterate again, the handouts are in the handout section. You can go there to go download them. And the recording for this webinar will be sent, but I think at the end of the day or during the weekend, because it takes some time for it to process on Big Marker. And then you can always go back to watch it. In the meantime, next week's webinar, same time, 9 a.m. On Friday. The invites are going to be sent out on Monday, and I look forward to seeing everybody here again next Friday. Thank you so much, Darren, for helping us.
Thank you, Tony.
Us
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you so much. And have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.